everybody. Welcome back.
Hello.
This is Bad Marriages in the Bible, and we are your hosts. I'm Sean.
I'm Kate.
And we are Dandelion Ministries, where we create space for you to experience the grace of Jesus Christ in your place of need. And as I like to say in my little intro bits, whenever I do it, that's the place. If you're not feeling it there where you actually need it, then what's the point of it? And that is true across the board, just so you know. It's actually where the rubber meets the road, is where you're feeling your inability, where you're feeling your insecurity and your fear, all of those places. That is actually where the Lord meets you, and where the gospel, you need to hear the gospel. And if you're not hearing the gospel in those places, then you need to go to a different church or something, or just keep listening to this podcast. Hopefully you'll hear it from us. So we want you to hear it there. And so we at Dandelion love to use creative means to do that. We use art and music and conferences and retreats and all sorts of things like this podcast to make that space so that you might actually hear the good news where you're really hurting today and where you're really needing it. So you can check all that stuff out on our website. And this podcast, as you have probably heard is before, if you've listened to us, but now as well, is called Bad Marriages in the Bible. And we are looking at bad marriages because that is a very acute place where you need grace in marriage, in your primary relationships. It's where we feel our need for forgiveness and love, and where we feel the fact that we don't love the way that we should most of the time.
Yeah, it's by design that these two people will get so close to each other that all of the wonderful things that attracted you to them might begin to grate against you, and it flushes out all of those selfish ambitions that maybe other people don't get to see quite as well as your spouse does. But that's by design so that we would be brought deeper into God's forgiveness, and you actually integrate those selfish areas or the trauma in the past or the fears. Those places would be integrated into the forgiveness that Jesus has given to you. So really, marriage, our vision for it is it's a ministry of reconciliation, where God is using your spouse and using you and your spouse's life to bring you deeper into his grace for you in a way that you wouldn't otherwise do on your own.
Yeah. And it's true for those of you out there that are not married or have been married and are no longer married. For all of us who want intimate romantic love, it is an area of deep vulnerability and need in each one of us. And it is a place where we need to hear God's grace and love for us there. Even, like Kate just said, in marriage for those reasons, because it brings everything out, but especially also for those who are not married or have been and or just experience the pain of the lack. It is an area where you need God's mercy and love for you. And so that's why we're focusing on these relationships as we walk through the Bible. And we are in the book of Proverbs now.
And just that idea of it's God's grace for you that has gone ahead of you, and his love for you that he's shown you in Jesus goes ahead of you and kind of creates a safe space for when those areas of sin or selfishness come up, or trauma or fear, that there is a safe place to be curious about those and to look at those and to talk about it, versus saying, that's sin, I've got to stop doing that. And that's what Proverbs gives us so much opportunity to do that. As we talked about last time, it can read as a lot of demands. It does read. It is. It's a lot of demands.
Yeah. It's not like there's another way to read this. No, it is telling you there's a very clear right and wrong way of things.
Yes.
And that's confrontational too.
It's very
for our mind, our contemporary mind.
Right. I mean, it was written in a time where there was, it was coming up against other religions that offered a pantheon of gods. And it's saying there is one God that has a particular moral code and a particular way that he has ordered the universe. And this is the way that it works best. And so that in itself is an apologetic for there being one God who's actually in charge of all these things. But that will read as a convicting word.
Yeah. And we are, as we said last episode, we are always bent towards trying to live according to moral codes. We are always bent towards trying to live according to the law, trying to do the right thing and avoid the bad thing. And that's the way we think life works. That's the way we think that we prove our worth and all sorts of things. And it's, as we said before, it's a misunderstanding of the law and why the law was given. The law was given to expose the fact that we don't do the good thing and that we keep choosing the bad thing, as Paul says in Romans 7. So it was given to expose our need, to actually rip the Band-Aid off and to silence our delusional denial efforts and to really have us left with no options in and of ourselves to save ourselves.
And we'll see that the precursors of that in Proverbs, they're actually there. The seeds of that, the fact that the demands of God are meant to drive you to slay all of those impulses to save yourself on your own and to drive you to his Savior, who he has given in the New Testament. And this is pointing forward to him, to the true wisdom of God that we talked about last time, where the wisdom of God was fully demonstrated by giving Jesus, who gave his life on the cross. And that is foolishness to us and to our efforts to save ourselves or, be our own gods. It's foolishness to us. But for those who now realize, oh my gosh, I'm hurting. I'm broken. I need help. I can't do this on my own, who are overwhelmed, who are suffering, who are, brokenhearted, who don't know what to do next, are in that place of vulnerability. Then you see that as, wow, that is the generous wisdom and love of God for me, that he did that for me. And that gets appropriated and applied over and over again to your places of need. His love for you. You can't hear it enough. And it's the driving force that gives you the desire to do perhaps something else.
Yeah. And just the one thing I'd add to that very wonderful list you just gave in terms of where we're sitting, and when this rings as good news is when you see your capability for doing the thing you never thought you could do, or when you've actually gone to places you never thought you'd go, or you just
negatively, you mean?
Yes. Like where you, right. Sorry.
I'm not talking about my weightlifting
That's right. Man,
regime.
I finally broke that glass ceiling and now I mean, in the sense of like you always consider yourself a really good person that did good things and tried to love other people and all that stuff. And then you find yourself, maybe it's just thinking, maybe it's just thoughts. Your kid has pushed you to your limits and you have a quick flash of fantasy of like hurting your child. Or you deeply love your spouse or whatever, and then all of a sudden you see somebody that really piques your interest and you feel all this attraction and urge of,
Lust.
Adulterous thoughts. Yeah, adulterous thoughts. And just call the thing what it is. And so, these types of moments, or you actually act on them, and this is our world. And this is where we are all living. We love to sit there and present something to everybody else that we have it together and that we're not that person. We're all desperately trying to present the good person that does good things and makes good choices. We have different law sets, sets of rules that we are trying to live up to there, whether, whatever those particulars might be, what you define good as. But the reality is that every single one of us has broken our own standards and has certainly broken the standards of God. And that's why these words are convicting to us. And it's also why we can actually call it that and be clear on it because we have something much better. And that's what you were saying. It's pushing us to Christ. There's something so much better than trying to live according to our standards and to the law. We can't do it. What we need is a Savior.
So we're going to dive into Proverbs, and we invite you to join us in Proverbs chapter 2, where chapters 1 through 9 is a little bit more narrative, and it's contrasting these two women, symbolic women, the woman of wisdom and that of folly, or of idolatry, or of a strange woman who does not know or has forgotten the covenant of her God, or the forbidden or adulterous woman. So there's many kind of terms for the contrast of wisdom, which is personified with the woman. So you see this balance in Proverbs, and it seems to presuppose that we are going to live our life completely tempted,
Right.
with a bent towards the forbidden one, or the strange, or the idolatrous. That's where we're bent towards. So Proverbs gets very convicting
Right
because it's exposing that.
Yeah, chapter 1, as we pointed out, I think last week, chapter 1 is very synonymous or consistent with other parts of the Bible, Romans 3 and other places where it's like, this is what you've done. You've already done this. Wisdom has come and has cried out and you have rejected it. You've rejected God. You've rejected his wisdom, and you've sought after your own glory, kind of thing, and that's how chapter 1 goes.
It's quite convicting. Exactly. So if you're trying to have a good read, it's you're going to be like, oh,
I'm just going to sit down and get a little nugget of wisdom today from Proverbs. If you pay attention, it's telling you that you've already blown the pooch. You already screwed the pooch. Screwed the pooch and blown the, I don't even know what you've blown. You've blown it. So anyway, go ahead.
And so in Proverbs 2, it gives you what really needs to happen is that you cannot generate this kind of wisdom on your own. It must be given to you as a gift. But God is a gift giver, and that is what he does. And that's, why he had this written down, was to expose the pride or the folly and see yourself described, so that he would break that open in order to give you the gift of wisdom, which is answered in Jesus's forgiveness and grace in the future.
Right. And it's really comforting. I mean, I'll just tell you this. So our daughter, who we love dearly, has been dealing with mono lately. And when she first started having symptoms, she's only 10. So when she started having symptoms, we were freaking out because she had severe headaches and all this kind of stuff.
That's the way it presented itself in her
particular case, which mono is just a weird smorgasbord for people.
It seems to affect everybody in a different way.
I had it when I was in college. But anyway, it scared us very severely because we have a history of brain tumors in our background and our families, and that just freaked us out. And we were just like, what's going on with her? This is not normal. And we didn't have any diagnosis. We didn't have anybody who understood the problem. But then we went to her doctor, and her doctor was amazing, and she was super helpful, ran some tests, blah, 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 and it came back that she has mono, and it explained the thing. And we went to a neurologist and all this kind of stuff, and she's fine. Her brain is fine. Praise God. But so the mono was the thing that the accurate diagnosis gave us hope. And having somebody who knew what was going on and wasn't deluded about the real thing. And that is something, just in the fact that God is diagnosing you. The fact that chapter 1 does that, when he's like, this is wisdom and you've totally forsaken it. You're like, oh, that sounds bad. I just wanted you to praise me, Lord. And but he doesn't.
It's like it goes the other way around.
Instead, he says, this is what's really going on. And that is such good news, because we spend so much of our time, as we said already, in delusion and denial, trying to convince ourselves that, no, I'm going to get it right this time. We white knuckle it. We try to convince ourselves that we're going to be able to do it. And yet we're always dealing with the frustration and the real internal battle where we're not doing it, where our hearts are not actually in the thing.
And you can tell the difference if you're living with just only law rattling around in your head, only these demands that you think you ought to do, even as whether you're a Christian or not, but a Christian can kind of live in that world.
In explicit terms, yeah. I mean, everybody does. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
You will fluctuate between a sense of despair that you're not doing it and there's no hope, or self-righteousness. Oh, I'm doing it. And what's the problem with them? They couldn't pull it together. Right. And so you will fluctuate in those places. When you have the word of grace and of promise as, being the louder voice, you will have a great deal of humility about your weaknesses, knowing there but the grace of God go I. You will have that humility. And so these words that will convict, they have room and space to convict, and you can be curious about them. And gosh, where did that impulse come from? I've done it again. Okay. And you hear God's love for you and his forgiveness of you and the new desire to want to do something different that satisfies the desire that caused you to want to sin in the first place. But you have a greater satisfaction with what he's offering to you. You will have that sense of being loved and of having him with you, and that he's gone ahead of you and is helping you every minute of every day. You'll have a sense of assurance, and it comes with a great deal of humility, but also that deep sense of being loved and of being like, oh my gosh, he's helping me all the time. That is a different mentality of when you are hearing that voice of promise or of the gospel versus the law running your life.
Yeah. Yes.
So let's get into that here in Proverbs 2:6. So we hear that, you can't generate wisdom on your own, even in your marriages. For the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the path of justice, watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice. Just listen to all these promises of God's initiative and of his action in the thing that you could not do for yourself. He doesn't hold back. He's not just giving you a little trickle. He's given you his full unleashing of his wisdom and protection. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil. And then it goes into a couplet. So that delivering, watching over, guarding you. And that is, again, the antecedent is in the New Testament where Paul, the Apostle Paul, and church planter, he was like, the wisdom of God is shown at the cross in 1 Corinthians 1 that we looked at last week. That is the wisdom of God and the power of God. That word of the cross, that what Jesus says, I see everything you're going through. I do not condemn you for it. I do not hold it against you. I have come to forgive and to save you from that. But it's also all laid bare. He's not like, oh, we're going to minimize this. He's opened it up in order to make his forgiveness known in that place.
Right.
And so, yeah.
I was going to say, it's the accurate diagnosis. It's saying now we can deal with the thing.
That's right.
Because if you avoid the thing, if you think you're dealing with something else, then you can't actually address it, right? So
exactly.
That's right.
So he opens that wound, like pretend you've been, you have this like bullet of sin or something in you, and he opens it to see what we've got in there. And we have a couplet here. So
to show us, I mean, that's the other thing. It's like some of our language sometimes methinks some of our language sometimes makes us feel like the Lord is kind of discovering it too, or that there's like that somehow he's not fully aware of what's actually what you already. I mean, he knows everything about what has gone on in your life, what is going on in your life, where you are. None of it is a surprise to him. I guess that was something that I struggled with as a kid, was feeling like that if I get discovered, I'm in trouble. That was the way I lived so much of my life, was fear of other people kind of finding out the real thing with me, that I really actually have a real mean streak, or I've got a potty mouth or whatever, or I've got an adulterous heart. And the thing with the Lord, when he's cutting it open or taking off the, all the fake dressings we put on our stuff, he's actually opening our eyes to what's really going on to ourselves.
Yeah.
So that we can actually see him for who he really is then too.
That's right.
He knows he's going to deal with it. That's like what you said. He actually is fully confident in his ability to forgive and heal.
Yes.
And he wants us to see that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah. It's already all forgiven on the cross once and for all, but he's bringing us into that.
Yep.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
He's like, I've seen this the whole time.
Yep.
So we have this couplet, and that's how we're going to begin this like wisdom, folly, contrast in Proverbs. And so discretion will watch over you and understanding will guard you. I'm in Proverbs 2:11, delivering you from the way of evil. And then he talks about how a man would bring you into unjust gain, promise you unjust gain. And then how a strange woman would woo you into kind of letting loose with no regard to your faith or the people around you.
Right.
And so delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech who forsake the paths of uprightness and walk in the way of darkness. And then it goes on in verse 10. So you'll be delivered from the forbidden woman, or the
verse 16.
Strange woman.
We're getting older, and Kate doesn't have her reading glasses on. Verse 16.
Oh, look at that! I really thought it was a 0, not a 6. my eyes.
Your eyes.
So you'll be delivered from the strange woman, or foreign or forbidden, from the adulteress with her smooth words. But adulteress can also mean a foreign woman. But the key thing about her is she forsakes the companion of her youth, which could be the closest of friends, and she forgets the covenant of her God. And so let's let loose and, forget who God is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
forget his love for you. Let's just do this thing, even if it's harmful for you.
Yeah, like this is what I just feel it. Don't you feel it? It feels right. Let's go.
Right.
I mean, it's that very impulsive, and it sounds kind of amazing and romantic, like we definitely see this portrayed in our movies and stuff like that, where it's just like, I just couldn't help myself. We just, we're powerless against it. And the plain truth is you are. I mean, the reality is most of the time you are. And if you're already there mentally, you're there. And that's the way scripture goes. That's what Jesus does, is like this on a heart level, you're already there. You are there. And we are powerless against our brokenness and against our desires, and that's why this is convicting and why it exposes us, and why we need the first thing you said, which is we need God to be the one who actually gives us what we need. We need him to be the one who knows us and rescues us and saves us.
That's right. So in this safe space of being known and rescued, because we've got this God who's doing all that cascade of promises, delivering, watching over, you can be curious about those impulses. Oh my gosh, I am totally stressed out about my finances. And here's somebody, and this is written, the original audience was to young men, but like a father writing to his sons. And sons were the ones who were taught to read and write, but now in our age of literacy. And also you see the New Testament, Jesus inviting that scene with Mary and Martha, and Mary sits at his feet to learn the way only a student would learn from his rabbi. He is saying, I want you to also be my disciple and to learn from me. And then Paul, all of those sort of frustrated words at women when he's like, women ought to keep silent. He's actually saying that, if you read the context, because he wants them to learn, and to learn the way a student would from their rabbi. And he's mad that they're not learning the gospel right, and they're spreading false gospels. And so he wants them to learn, and he's working closely with women, and he's using strong language because he wants them to be these disciples too. And so as a woman, you got to read this and appropriate these things for yourself too. Could be, anybody, a guy, girl, whatever is pulling you into the offer of unjust gain.
Yeah. Bad business deals.
Quick money.
Like let's make money fast, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Or anybody who's like, let's, this is going to satisfy you. You're stressed out. Let's do this thing. And let's go have sex together, or let's do drugs. Yeah.
or get, I don't know,
lost in, comparing yourself on social media. Let's just do that for hours.
Right.
It'll be great.
Let's go shopping.
You're going to feel so good. So
yeah, whatever it is, but I think in this, it's more stereotypical, like you say, in this moment, because it's written to, this is a father writing to his son, and it's talking about the men who are shady business guys, and then women who are trying to tempt you into sleeping with them, essentially.
Yes.
And it's like he's saying, watch out for those things.
And what they'll do is they will promise life, but it will bring death. And that's what the strange woman, for her, ultimately her house sinks down to death, her paths to the departed. The none who go to her come back. It's going to promise you relief and life, but it's going to actually bring entanglement and enslavement and death.
Right. And you guys, we've talked about this before on this podcast, but you all know, we all have experience with that, where we're like, oh, well, the quick, easy fix, whatever it is, if it's the quick, easy fix on my emotional reality right now that I need a relief.
Because we're all dealing with the futility of life.
Right. Or if it's the quick, easy fix on my finances, going to a loan shark or something named Vito, who's like, sure, I'll give you 20 grand and it'll be a 30% interest every day, whatever it might be. These quick fixes might feel like they've done something positive in the immediate, and they often do. I mean, this is the case with, pornography, with any kind of addiction, with any kind of drug, with any kind of,
compulsive behavior.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to feel it. You want to numb out. It
promises relief, and in the immediate, it gives you some. But as we all know, the demand only grows, and the need for more of whatever the substance is increases to get the same relief that you had at first.
And the more you do it, the more isolated you're going to get.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah, I mean, just on the neuroscience level, your brain is just always going to need a bigger hit to get the same amount of relief it had before, because you get used to things, and you kind of start to feel a little numb to it, and your body accommodates. It's just biologically, you're going to need more. And then, as Kate said, interrelationally, it is going to actually give you the opposite of what you want, which what we all really want is connection. We all really want intimacy and depth and that feeling of safety that we've talked about so much on this podcast. And this thing is going to take it from you. It's going to drive you into isolation. It's actually going to hurt your relationships, especially if you're messing around with somebody else. Like if you're messing around with
an image or a real person,
or or just like if you're going off and doing bad business deals, if you've got some legitimate business someplace else, those relationships are going to suffer, it's going to actually destroy the areas that are life-giving, and it's eventually going to take, and so that's what this is telling you. And it's an accurate description of our solutions.
That's right.
And this is why we need God to do that cascade of promising, we need him to.
That's right. He does. So Proverbs is really heart surgery. He's doing heart surgery and being like, well, there's a lot of cholesterol in here, or I don't know. I've mixed all my surgical metaphors
That
so
works.
far.
Cholesterol.
Cholesterol,
Fine.
a bullet, whatever
You
else
got a
I've
lot
said.
of buildup in your
A
arteries.
lot of buildup in here. So we're going to scoop that. We're going to, bring it out and scoop it out because you're in the hands of a God who loves you and is bringing his forgiveness and the power of the cross, his wisdom and his power. That the New Testament says it was in Jesus, and the Old Testament is pointing forward to that. We're saying there is some kind of personalized wisdom where God is gracious towards sinners and is active in rescuing them from their own follies. So that is the God that we have. So Proverbs is heart surgery. It's done by a God who loves you. He uses these close relationships. We're going to look especially in marriages, but he'll do it in parenting or in your whatever, any relationship you have with anybody else, with yourself. So that's what we see here.
That's right. Yeah. So we are going to spend some time looking more explicitly at marriage because Proverbs does also say some positive things about it. It's not all just like watch out and warning. It actually is a book that really holds up marriage in a positive way in chapter 5. So that's where we're going to go next time. So stay tuned for that. And we are just grateful for you guys spending some time with us today. We do hope that you have heard that word for you today, that Jesus Christ actually loves you, knows you completely, knows exactly what you're dealing with, and that he has spoken his love and mercy to that place, saying, I love you, I forgive you. There's nothing you can do that would push me away or make me leave you. And so we hope that you hear that today. And we just would love to have you write us a positive review if you like the show in your podcasting app. We'd love for you to recommend it to one of your friends. You can support the show. It's in the show notes. All that we do at Dandelion is through charitable giving, paid for by charitable giving. And also, if you want to send us your questions or prayer needs, you can do that too. My email is in the show notes for you. So we are grateful for you and hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you.